back to another episode of the Knitting Jungle podcast. Thank you so much for returning to my channel. My name is Sara, in case you're new here, and I live just outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And this is one of those regular knitting podcasts where I talk about everything that I've been working on recently. Today I have a lot of hand knitted projects as well as some machine knitting projects. I really went ham with the machine knitting this past month. I know there's a lot of you in the comments who are really interested in machine knitting, so that will be probably at the second half of the video in case you'd like to stick around for that. I show myself making the entire back panel of a sweater. So I think I'm trying to learn how to film the machine knitting process. It's kind of tricky to see, but yeah, stick to the end if you'd like to see all the machine knitting content. Thank you to everyone who left a comment on my last video. I love to talk about what you're knitting on in the comments. And thank you for all the advice about my Beatrix cardigan. Spoiler alert, I'll talk about that in a little bit. But first, thank you to everyone who left other comments about what you're knitting on and where you're from in the world. I love to read those, it really makes my day. And I respond to all my comments, so in case you have any questions about something you see here today, just leave me a comment and I'll make sure to get back to you. So yesterday was the first day of spring. I can hardly believe we survived another winter. Really feels like I survived something this year. I don't know, it just was so dark and we had so much snow and ice this year. So last month I kind of got started on my spring knitting, like spring sweaters, and I've already finished 3. Could that possibly? Yeah, because one was a machine knit, so that was like pretty fast. So I already have 3 finished spring sweaters and one that's like 75% done. So I definitely have a lot to show you today because it's been 4 weeks since my last episode. Well, it's been 3. I filmed my last one 4 weeks ago but posted it like a week late, so I have 4 weeks of knitting content to show you. So make sure to grab whatever project you're working on, maybe a nice hot cup of coffee, and let's get started. Oh, also forgot to mention to please hit the subscribe button if you're not subscribed already, and if you like the video, give it a thumbs up. And if you'd like to follow me over on Instagram to get kind of sneak peeks of whatever projects I'm working on, my name is knitting_jungle over there. And I'm also on Ravelry, and I'll link everything down below, including the patterns, the yarn, and I'll also leave it up on the screen for you as well. Okay, now let's get started. So the first finished object I have is this sweater. This is the Dahlia sweater by Irene. And I kind of discovered her on Ravelry recently. She has so many beautiful patterns that have just a little bit of color work, and they're so classy and unique at the same time. And I fell in love with this pattern and the colorway that she did, which was like the background color was all white and then the accent color was black or maybe dark brown. But I had this beautiful woolen spun yarn in my stash that I've been meaning to use up, and it didn't require that many balls of yarn because it's kind of a slightly cropped design. So I went with the inverse type of colorway where this is dark and then the accent is light. The accent color is something I used, some leftover yarn I had from my Beatrix cardigan, which you will have seen in my last couple of episodes. So last episode you will have seen I started it, I was maybe about here on the yoke, so not very far at all. And remember I was talking about how the neck hole looked really small? Well, I zoomed in on her picture and it looked like she had stretched her neckline like a lot. Like the ribbing was super stretched out looking. So when I blocked mine, I did that as well, and it's super stretchy, and I really like how this turned out, and I think it was all fine in the end. The neckline starts off casting on the same number of stitches for all the sizes, I believe, so I was pretty sure it was gonna work out, but it looked a little bit weird. But anyways, that all worked out. Let me talk about the yarn real quick, and then I'll talk about the construction. So this is all I have left. Yikes! Talk about yarn chicken. So for my Beatrix cardigan, I used a worsted weight woolen spun yarn for the first time, and I love woolen spun yarns now. It's so light and fluffy and airy and kind of like very squishy and light at the same time. And so I wanted to work with that again, and I had it in my stash, and I was really into textured knits. after the Beatrix cardigan. So this one is actually in a brioche stitch, which I had never done before, so I thought I'd like to give that a try. And the woolen spun yarn I think is perfect for a texture like this. This is Wisconsin woolen worsted spun? No, Wisconsin woolen spun yarn. They're worsted weight. I think they also have a fingering weight version of this. And this is the Hawthorn color. It's a very dark brown, but as you can see, it's got little strands of whitish, grayish things in there. And it's so soft. It's a non-superwash wool, but it is so soft that I think if you were sensitive to wool, I don't think you'd find this scratchy. I don't find this scratchy at all. I'm not sensitive at all, but I also can tell when something might be scratchy, and this is not scratchy at all. It seems like they're out of a lot of these colors. I'm not sure what their like production schedule is, but I did see they did have this colorway still available last week, and maybe like 1 or 2 other colorways in case you want to check it out. But I'll link it down below just in case. So I only had 3 balls of the Wisconsin woolen spun, and so that wasn't quite enough. I think I needed about 1,000 meters for my size. So I had an extra ball of some souvenir yarn I got on my trip to San Francisco last year, and it was also a dark brown with a little bit of whitish things in there, and it's super soft. And so to make this Wisconsin woolen go farther, I used my souvenir yarn for the neckline and all the ribbing, basically the neckline and the sleeve ribbing. And I don't think you can really tell. I think it was a good idea. And pretty much necessary because this is all I had left of the original yarn. And this one is so soft. It's from Firebird Yarn Company in San Francisco. It's so soft that it's actually already pilling. But it's okay. I don't really mind. And especially pilling on a texture like this, I find less annoying than on a stockinette type of cardigan. And I've been wearing this every single day since I finished it last week, just so I could let you know how the yarn is holding up and if it's pilling and everything. And yeah, it is pilling a little bit, but it's nothing too crazy. It's mostly just under the arms here. Oh, actually that looks like kind of a lot. Yeah, so it might be a pretty pilly yarn, but it's so soft. And I think it just adds to this slubby kind of comfy texture and sweater design. So I will say I'm okay with this. So as I mentioned, this is a brioche stitch pattern, and this is made on 5mm needles, but it might as well have been made on like -1mm needle because that is how slow brioche stitch is. I'm probably never gonna do that again. Well, never say never, but I didn't really like the process of knitting this. The stitch itself was really fun, but it's such slow going because every other row you're slipping a stitch. So it seems like you have to do twice the amount of rows to see row progress, if you know what I mean. And the brioche stitch is kind of like ribbing, except the valley area is a knit and purl valley, and then the ridge is a knit 2 together knit stitch, which is like a giant knit stitch in the ribbing, if that makes sense. So it's really cool, but for a whole sweater it was very slow going, and with such a thick yarn and large needle size I expected this to go a lot faster than it did. But the pattern itself was super well written. There's another Irene Lynn pattern that I want to do, and I definitely would because she's a beautiful designer and her pattern is really well written. I like when they have diagrams and schematics, and she had that. Especially, I like when there's a little diagram of when you're doing a yoke, like exactly how many stitches in between each section of the raglan increases, because I'm a very visual learner. If it's just written out, it takes me quite a while to like kind of figure out what's going on. So I really appreciated that in her pattern. So it's a raglan style sweater, like I mentioned, and it's knitted from the top down. You start on the neckline ribbing, and then you do some interesting, maybe 3 or 4 rows to make this beautiful little mountain triangular accent color here. And the raglan section itself is super thick. It's like this thick, maybe like 7 or 8 stitches. And that's one of the reasons why I like this, why I picked this design to make, was because I'm really into raglan shaped sweaters right now. I think it's really flattering on me because I've got wide shoulders, definitely not narrow shoulders. So drop shoulders, for example, I think look bad on me, especially because I have a narrow waist and wide shoulders. So something about it, I just think raglans look a lot better on me. They kind of de-emphasize my shoulder and just make it look like, I don't know, something good is going on up here. So anyways, the very thick raglan I thought would be really flattering, and I like that you can see all the hard work you've put into that raglan. And the raglan is also in a brioche stitch, just going in a different direction, if that makes sense. So here you can kind of see. And so when I got here, about right here, I put this piece down for a week and I finished a test knit, which I'll show you next. And then when I picked this back up, I forgot how to do the brioche stitch, but I didn't know I had forgotten. So instead of doing yarn over knit one, I did knit one and then yarn over. And I did that for probably about an hour and knit about 2 inches. And then I looked back and the brioche didn't look quite right. You'll definitely be able to tell. See how it's a little bit like a little bit bent right here? Right here, the brioche is wrong because I yarn overed in the wrong spot. And I decided not to rip back because, like I said, this was like 1 or 2 hours of work just to do like 2 inches. And I wasn't confident in ripping back in brioche stitch because at this point I didn't really understand it. Once I got down here, I think I totally could have ripped back after many more hours of brioche practice. But up here I was like, no way, it's not gonna work and I'm not wasting all those hours. So I just left it in and hoped it would block out. And from far away, it's definitely fine, especially because it's kind of a darker yarn. But only you and me and knitters will notice something like this. And usually I keep all my mistakes in so that you know it's handmade, and maybe out of laziness as well. So that is probably my biggest mistake of this, or biggest complaint of this sweater, is a mistake that's totally on me. And if you're doing brioche, I recommend you watch a video on YouTube or something just to make sure you don't mess it up like I did. One of my favorite techniques I learned on this sweater, and I'm definitely going to use this in the future, has to do with a new way to raise the back neckline that doesn't include short rows. So you know how sometimes when you're like just starting out on a sweater and maybe you're working on the yoke still, there are some short rows just in the back section that will raise the back neckline a couple inches just so that it sits nicely, so it's not like this. It's so that the sweater can sit more like this. Well, if you don't want to ruin your beautiful pattern by interrupting it with a chunk of short rows in the back neck, you can do what Irene Lynn did, and right as you're splitting for sleeves, she has you knit a few extra rows just in the back section, and then you split for sleeves and join in the round. So in that way you're raising the back by putting extra in the down here in the back before you start knitting in the round again for the body. And so that just, yeah, makes the back length longer, but you don't have to do it up here at the yoke. And like, for example, that would have ruined this beautiful contrast color section here. So I thought that was really cool. And sometimes short rows can confuse people, at least they confuse me sometimes. Like, it's not the most intuitive thing, and sometimes I lose count and then it gets all messed up. But just knitting extra rows in the back, that seems a lot easier to do, so maybe you would like to try that too one day. So like I mentioned, it was a real game of yarn chicken, this one. So I was kind of working on the sleeves, both sleeves and the body all at the same time. So I broke the yarn multiple times to like make sure the sleeves were going to be the same. And I think I knitted the sleeves first because I don't mind a crop sweater, and I definitely wanted the sleeves to be full length. And yeah, there was no shaping in the sleeves until right before you get to the contrast color. And so they're quite balloony, but also they're not like a puff. It looks kind of like this. So I think that's a really flattering design. And mine, I think in her picture, her sleeves are like this long, but I kind of like this. It kind of looks like one of those cute little 80s jazzercise oversized sweaters where it's kind of, this is really good for cooking and, you know, doing stuff, and I can roll it up a little to get the sleeves out of the way. And yeah, I just love the fit of this. It's like in between cropped and regular length, and it's super, super, super cozy. Like I said, I've worn this almost every day the past week, and yeah, it's also great for spring because this texture is kind of see-through, so it's warming, but not too warming, if you know what I mean, for those early spring days that maybe it's a little bit cold in the morning or night. The last thing I'll say is that I didn't make any modifications to the length of the body or the sleeves. So I think the model in the picture must be shorter than me, I think. Because I had to stretch the sleeves 3 inches and they're like this length, they're not like way down here. And then on her, the body goes a little bit lower, I think, to maybe the hips, and mine is maybe an inch or so shorter than that. And I made the size 5. The model is wearing a size 4, and it says hers has 14.5 inches of positive ease, and when I made the 5, that gave me 13.5 inches of positive ease. It's pretty big down here, which is fine, but I definitely don't want it to be too tight up here where I have like broad shoulders. So I always like to make a little bit larger size to make sure this whole yoke area fits properly, and I think it definitely does. And maybe in the future I could have maybe cast on less stitches here to do the body and the round, just to make it a little bit more narrow. That's something I'm kind of learning, like I learned on the Beatrix cardigan as well. I'm kind of learning that maybe I'd like to get into waist shaping or size combining to make alterations in the future just to fit. I'm kind of learning like what suits me and what I like in my sweaters. So that's one adjustment I would make if I were to make this again, which I will not because brioche stitch. And if you're interested in making this yourself, it comes in 8 sizes and is available in English, Korean, and Japanese. Okay, we're on to my next finished object, which is this test knit. This is a test knit called the Cynthia cardigan, and it's by Gregoria Fibers. Right as I was finishing up the Beatrix cardigan, Gregoria Fibers put out a call for test knitters on her Instagram, and I just love the way she wrote the Beatrix cardigan, so I signed up because one of my goals for 2025 was to try to do a test knit, and I got picked, which I was so happy about, and now all my goals for 2025 are complete, I guess. But anyways, this pattern is actually coming out, I guess, tomorrow or maybe today, depending on when I post this video, but it's coming out on Saturday, March 22nd, so that is very exciting because I think this is going to be perfect for spring. So this is a beautiful little fitted cardigan, and it has crochet buttons. The yarn I used for this was heavily discounted, and it is the Lalu Knits Fluff. It's one of those blown yarns, and this one is 32% superfine alpaca, 21% wool, 15% silk, and 32% cotton. And this is super soft, definitely not itchy at all. So if you can't get a hold of this kind of yarn, a good alternative would be maybe Drops Air or Gepard Puno, I believe. Those are also really thick blown yarns that are super soft. And I held it together. Oh, this is the color 102 Off-White. And I wanted to experiment with a golden marled effect because I think yellow is going to be a color that's really popular for spring. So I held it together with this drop silk mohair in the color Curry. And as you can see, it created a really interesting golden effect here, which I think just I think it's really neat, and I'm glad I did that. It's not just a boring, you know, white cardigan. It has like little shimmer, kind of a shimmery effect from the silk in the silk mohair. The crocheted buttons give it kind of a whimsical kind of feeling. Anyways, the pattern suggests you use a 6mm needle for this, but to meet gauge I used a 5mm needle, and every time whatever needle the pattern was suggesting, I just went down by 1mm exactly to meet gauge. So I really like how this was constructed. It has kind of a set-in shoulder type of effect without having to actually knit the sleeves separately and set them in, sew them in. So it's a European construction where you start in the back and you make increases here, and you pick up each of the fronts separately, and then you pick up stitches for the sleeves and knit the back, sleeves, and front all in the round while shaping at the same time until you get to the split for sleeves section, I think. This is already maybe 3 weeks ago when I finished it, but it's a very standard, like kind of pretty easy pattern, I would say. I think this is good for a beginner because it's just stockinette, and it's not too much knitting because it's on pretty large needles, and the neckline is just a 1x1 rib. That's pretty easy, and then so is the bottom hem. And the button bands are knitted by casting on, okay, so first you pick up all the stitches down the front of one side, and then you cast on some more stitches and then knit the button band at the same time as you're combining with one of the stitches from the front, if that makes sense. And she uses the same technique on the Beatrix cardigan, so I was already really familiar with how to do that. But at first I was like, what is this? This kind of weird, and then it took maybe like 20 minutes to figure out how to actually do that because I'd never done that button method before. But it looks really cool because that way you can have a vertical neckband. The neckbands I've made in the past, you pick up the stitches but then you knit it flat in this direction, so the stitches are going opposite to how they lay in the rest of the body. But I like how they're both, the stitches in the ribbing and the body are both going vertically, which I think looks really classy and kind of store-bought, but in a good way. So I made the size 3, and I have a 36-inch bust circumference, and I think that's like 91 or 92 centimeters. And as for the sleeves, there's no shaping in the sleeves, so again, that's super easy. They're not too wide, they're not skin tight, but they just have a little bit of positive ease, and there's just straight all the way down to the cuff. So yeah, I made the size 3. It's gonna come in 8 sizes, and the recommended positive ease is 3.25 inches. Just checking my notes here, for all the sizes, the finished circumference range is on the low end 35 3/4 inches, and then for the largest size, the finished circumference is 56.25 inches. I think I used 3.5 balls of the kid silk for the size I made, and for this my size was supposed to use 9 balls, but I only used 7, so just keep that in mind. So since this was a test knit, I followed the directions exactly for the length of the body and the sleeves. I'm 5'7", but I have really long arms and legs. So when I blocked the sleeves, I blocked them 2 inches longer than what their finished length was. And that gave me, I think, the perfect bracelet length, which could also be rolled up into a 3/4 length, which is, I think, perfect for spring in case you're getting a little hot. And then having a cardigan for spring is also great because you can open it up if you're hot and close it when you're cold. And I think that's all I have to say about that one. So that's it for my hand knitted finished items. There's some machine knitted finished items which I will put after all the hand knits. So I will go on to my works in progress now, starting with my new favorite ultimate sweater, which is gonna be my go-to spring sweater, I think. I have a feeling I'm gonna be living in this all spring. So this is the Gerda sweater by Aegyo Knit, and she's quite large. Actually, let me put her on real quick. Oh wow, that was easy. So here she is. Oh wow, it looks incredible. I love the color I chose. This is like a baby pink, and this just really looks good on my skin. It really makes me look alive, and it makes me feel alive as well. And something about pink just makes me so happy. My favorite colors are pink and green, and those are perfect for spring. And so here we go. I picked pink for my ultimate cozy spring sweater. So this is the Gerda sweater by Aegyo Knit, and I've been meaning to make something by Aegyo Knit for quite some time now. She has beautiful textured cable knits with really interesting shapes that are pretty unusual, and so for my first pattern by Aegyo Knit, I chose this one. In the model, it just looks so beautiful. I love this checkerboard design here with cables. And so it looks like a lot is going on, but it's not hard at all. It's just very simple checkerboard. Oh, I've got some threads sticking out here. Don't mind me. And I've easily memorized this pattern now because you can just count. There's 4 rows to each one of these checkerboards, and then you switch it up. And then for the cables, all the cables are facing the same way, so you don't have to make a mistake twisting your cables left or versus right. Every size has the same amount of cables, so there's 2 in the front, and 2 on the raglans, and 1 on the sleeve. So it won't be too hard to get confused in between sizes in case you need to combine one size with another or anything like that. I just couldn't be happier about this sweater. It's not even done yet. I even think it would look good as short sleeves. Maybe I'm just a little too obsessed, but I don't know, that kind of looks good too. So let me talk about the yarn, because I think the star of the show, besides the amazing pattern, is the color I chose, which is just making me so happy. So a while ago, I made some sweater for one of my girls for Halloween, and one of my girls has a wool sensitivity. She finds everything itchy, even alpaca. So I got this Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino blend because it's 70% cotton and 30% merino. For me to make her a sweater, for her to try if she likes that cotton and merino type of blend. And this is the color Ballerina. This beautiful, very, very pale pink color. And I never got around to making her sweater. I made one for my other daughter, but my younger daughter, I made her the Halloween sweater. And then my older daughter doesn't wear sweaters at all, like didn't wear sweaters all winter, so I didn't make her anything. And I had all this extra yarn sitting around, and I thought pink sweater will be perfect for spring. So here I am trying to use up some of my stash. However, this is all I have left, so I did have to order. I'm gonna have to stop this sleeve pretty soon, order more yarn, and wait for that, which is so sad because I feel like I'm making really good progress on this, and I'm ready to wear it like right now. I'll probably walk around the rest of the day like this. Anyways, so this pattern calls for a 4mm needle and I think maybe a DK weight yarn. And it seems like Knitting for Olive, it says it's a fingering weight, but it seems like thinner than that. So to get DK weight, I'm holding 2 strands of the Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino together, and then I added a 3rd strand, and this white is alpaca lace by Knitpicks. And it's just a lace weight alpaca because I didn't want to put mohair in this for spring. And also I think mohair might be itchy. I don't know how it took me this long to realize that, but I think mohair bothers me a little bit, and so at least the drops mohair I find a little bit itchy, and I didn't want it to use that. I wanted to try a lace weight of something else that was softer. So all of these 3 paired together gives a beautiful pale pink effect. I don't really like hot pink or like pink that's too in your face, but I think this pale pink is beautiful. Definitely my favorite shade of pink, I think. So I'm making the 4th size. I think this comes in 8 sizes, and the 4th size is supposed to have a finished chest circumference of 130 centimeters, which is going to give me 40 centimeters of positive ease. So this is definitely a cozy throw on after the beach summer night, spring night type of sweater, which is exactly what I'm looking for. Sorry, one of my cats has been whining to come in this whole time, and then when I finally open the door, he changes his mind. You know how it goes. Anyways, okay, so yes, I'm making the 4th size, and it's on 4mm needles, and the ribbing is on 3mm needles. The original in the models, the one the model is wearing in the picture is held with 3 strands of lace weight yarn. I think it's Isair spinny with maybe a mohair, maybe 2 strands of the Isair spinny and a strand of mohair. So far I've used, after I finish these 2, I will have used 8 balls of the Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino and 3 balls of the Knitpicks alpaca lace. So I got 1 more of the alpaca lace and I got 3 more balls of this just in case to finish off this and the other sleeve, and I think that should be good. So let me talk about the construction a little bit. This one is also knitted top down, and you start by making the ribbed neckline. There are 2 versions for the neck. There's like a big funnel neck, which I of course don't like anything near my neck, so I didn't choose that one. Or you can make this version, which is perfect scoop neck, and when you block it, I will probably try to open it up just a little more because I think that is perfect for me. And when I was buying this pattern, I was assuming I was going to have to make this new neck design myself, but it actually had both neck options in the pattern already, which is amazing. They say to do, the pattern says to make a double folded neckband, so like double thickness, but I wanted to err on the side of stretchability because I like a really wide neckline, so I needed it to be able, I wanted to make sure it'd be able to stretch to the width that I wanted, so I just did a 1 layered neckband so it'd be stretchier so I could do that. And when I started, it was very slow going while I was establishing the pattern and like learning the pattern, and there was a lot of markers for all the raglan increase sections, but it was really well mapped out. It had a perfect diagram, and which I really appreciate, having the diagram of how many stitches in each section and which section is the front, which one's the raglan, the sleeve, the back, everything. Without that, it is even harder for me to pick up on what the pattern wants me to do. So after about here, oh, she also provides charts for the first maybe like 15 or 20 rounds, just so you can follow along and really become familiar with the pattern. And then after about here, you're kind of left to your own devices, and you just keep making increases in the checkerboard section here on the front and the sleeves and the back sleeves. And you have to kind of just continue the pattern without instructions per se, like there's no charted instructions after about here. But by here I understood what the pattern did, and it was definitely easy for me to just increase in the checkerboard section, if that makes sense. Like I said, every size has the same amount of cables, so you don't have to add cables when you're making the increases. You're only adding to the checkerboard section, so that is not too hard, I think. And the cables, you only need to do something every 8 rows or so, so it's very not, you don't have, the cables will not slow you down very much with this pattern, I would say. And whenever you have to do a cable, it coincides with a row where you're also changing the checkerboard from purl to knit, for example. So it's very easy to just knit this straight through. You don't have to look at the pattern or anything. So I would say it's a very good knit for the car or on the go. Although now it's really large and hard to take places, but earlier on it was definitely a pretty mindless knit. Not like stockinette, but definitely still mindless. So right now I'm on the sleeve, and I'm about done with the sleeve before the ribbing, according to the pattern. But when you look at the model, I love how her sleeve goes past her fingers. Maybe I won't make it that long, but I definitely want it to cover my entire hand. So I'm just gonna keep knitting until I feel like it will cover my hand once I add the ribbing. And the ribbing for the sleeve, it says, is only going to be 6 millimeters, But if you look at the picture, that's definitely more than, wait, not millimeters, centimeters. It's definitely more than 6 centimeters, because if you just line up the ribbing with how many cable twists, it looks like it spans the length of like 4 cable twists, which I measured is like 9 or 10 centimeters. So, and I definitely like the look of a longer rib, so I'm probably gonna do about 10 centimeters of ribbing on the sleeves. For the body, the ribbing was 7 centimeters, but I stopped at 6 centimeters because it was already getting pretty long, and I thought it was fine, and it was time to start the ribbing, or end the ribbing there. So after I split for sleeves, you pick up some amount of stitches at the underarm and incorporate it into the checkerboard pattern. So this whole side is also checkerboard, and then there's just 1 cable on the sleeves here. So usually I don't like knitting sleeves, but I actually like this because it's engaging, the pattern is fun, and I'm just zipping through the rounds, and there's only 1 cable, so it feels like I'm making a lot of progress, and yeah, I'm really having fun with these sleeves for once, which is a nice change. But, oh, as I was saying, and this is totally on me, I didn't count how many stitches I have on the sleeve. I just picked up whatever number they told me to pick up. And it didn't really incorporate into the checkerboard pattern. And I didn't bother to check if I had the right number of stitches or not. I just went with it. And then this section here is like an extra wide checkerboard. So that's something that's definitely my fault, but I don't care at all. Otherwise I would have just added 4 stitches, but I kind of like this giant shape, and you're supposed to do some sleeve decreases, but when I was looking at the picture, it doesn't look like there's any decreases, and I really wanted a giant wide sleeve, so I'm not making any decreases at all for the sleeve. But when I do the ribbing, I'll probably size down 2 needle sizes just to make it come in a little bit, so I can maybe roll it up a little bit more easily. We'll see what I do there when I get to it. But yeah, that's one change I made, was I'm not gonna do any decreases in the sleeve because I want that giant oversized effect. Another thing is that there are no short rows in this pattern. And if you make this version, it's pretty stretchy, and when I block it, I can probably just block whatever I choose to be the front. I'll just block that neckline a little bit lower like this and have it dry like this. But what I should have done, and it was too late because I had already gone past the splitting for sleeves point, but what I could have done is something I learned from the Delia sweater, the one I just showed you, or the very first one I showed you, is right before you split for sleeves, knit like 8 rows just on the back panel to make the length of the back longer than the front. That would have been perfect for this pattern, and I totally should have done that. But it was already fitting okay, so I didn't feel the need to rip back to fix that because I think it's sitting perfectly, super comfortable. But that's something I could do next time. So yeah, that's all I have to say about my ultimate favorite spring sweater. I am so sad I have to wait for more yarn because I have been going crazy on knitting on this every night, and I'm just really ready to wear it, but it'll definitely be done by my next episode, I'm sure. So my next whip is something I'm not working that much on, but I have made some progress since the last time I talked about it, which was 2 episodes ago. And this is my own design. It is a tennis cardigan, and because I play tennis, and it just has like cabled rackets, some random cables. There's 2 different types of rackets here. This is supposed to be the chain linked fence that surrounds the court, and then I have some baubles here that represent the tennis balls. This is going to be a pocket. So this is the front. There's going to be 2 front pockets. Wow, this is looking pretty big. I hope it's not going to be too big like the other sweaters I've had to do surgery on. And then there's a very long twisted rib section here because I love twisted rib. And I'm knitting this from the bottom up. And since the last time I've talked about it, I have finished knitting up to where I will join the sleeves. So what I need to do is cast off some amount of stitches on each side and then knit the sleeves separately, and then I will attach this thing and the 2 sleeves on one giant circular needle, and then I'm going to knit raglan decreases up from the armpit all the way up to the neck, and then I'll figure out what to do from there. It's either going to be a V-neck or a scoop neck maybe, and since it's not color work, I could knit this flat, no problem. Right now I'm knitting it in the round, but I'm sure I could convert it to flat, maybe, or maybe I'll steek it. Anyways, there's a lot of things that need to be hammered out. But I did design the sleeves. I'm gonna make kind of a wide sleeve, again with a very long twisted rib at the cuff. And I'll put up a little picture of my current sleeve design here. I'm just gonna do tennis rackets and balls. I was originally thinking, how could I represent the court itself, but it's just kind of like a bunch of boxes and lines, and I don't think that would look too good and it probably wouldn't translate. So I'm just gonna go with the same racket motif from earlier. And yeah, I need to get started on that. Oh, the reason why I took such a big break from this was because I ran out of yarn, just like all my other projects. I've run out of yarn. Did I run out of yarn in the Beatrix? No. I ran out of yarn in the Delia, the Aegyo knit one, and this one. So I think I have a problem figuring out how much yarn to get. But anyways, I was waiting for a sale on Knitpicks because I got this on Knitpicks. And they finally had a 20 or 30% off sale a couple weeks ago, so I went ahead and got 3 more balls of this so I could finish my sweater. This is the Wood Note DK. And it is a beautiful blend of blue-faced Leicester and Masham and Merino. About 33% of all 3 of those. And it says 34% of BFL just to make the 100, I guess. And this is in the color Hair. It's a beautiful, creamy, dark white type of shade, like a warm, dark white. And this is gonna look really good with my tan as spring and summer comes. And it's super soft, it's a little bit drapey, a little bit stiff. So I think this is gonna go really well for spring as well. And the pockets, I just love adding pockets to a big cabled cardigan. That just sounds so cozy to me. I'm making this on 4mm needles, and that's pretty much all I have to say. This is just a slow, long-term project where whenever I find inspiration, I knit on it. But since I'll probably continue working on this because I have to wait for more yarn for this girl. So yeah, I'll probably be working on this, but we'll see in my next episode. So that's it for all my hand knitted finished objects and whips. So let me quickly talk about my fixes for the Beatrix cardigan, and thank you to everyone who suggested fixes in my last episode. So in case you don't know what I'm talking about, I knit this beautiful Beatrix cardigan by Gregoria Fibers. And this is also in a woolen spun yarn by Harrisville Designs, kind of local to me in New Hampshire. It's their sheer Wellscroft Dorset Aran weight yarn. It's a very long name like that. This is one of the natural colors of the sheep, like a beautiful beige gray kind of color. But I talk about this a lot more in my last 2 episodes, I think. Anyways, what happened was I never blocked my swatch, and this beautiful textured design just grew so much when I blocked it. And this is all my fault, by the way. I didn't measure how wide I wanted it to block. Once it was wet, I just laid it out till it looked nice, and I didn't consider the width at all, which is very stupid. But when I tried it, once it dried and I had tried it on, it was ginormous. I probably could have knit the very first size. That's how big this was. And I think I knit the 3rd size. Yeah, I probably could have sized down. But actually, maybe I shouldn't have even wet blocked this. I should have wet blocked the sleeves because those were super weirdly mutton chop shaped. But I should have just steamed blocked the body. That's something I learned for next time. If you've got a super textured pattern, definitely wash your gauge swatch. Sorry, there's someone outside doing something weird. Definitely wash or wet block your gauge swatch. That's kind of a tongue twister. or maybe even steam block it. If it's already fitting perfectly when you finish it, just steam block it because maybe you don't want it to grow that much. So some people suggested, well, I'm willing to cut my knits, it's no problem because I know how to sew. So the two solutions were try to reblock it, which a lot of people said, like there's no harm in reblocking something. It's not much effort and maybe it'll work. So I did reblock it, re-wet block it. But once something is stretched, it's very hard to like cinch it all back together, even though I was really careful when I put it in the water. I kept it like as tight as possible like this. And when I was taking it out of the water, I kept it like as a tube like this as best I could, like try to like get it to go back together in like concertina in on itself. And then I laid it out to dry, and I had gotten it to about 2 inches less on each side, so I was pretty optimistic. But then once I dried and put it on, it just went right back out to its original maximum width. So that was too bad because I thought I had really done it, but then I totally hadn't. So then it was on to plan B, which is cut and destroy. No, it wasn't actually destroyed. So what I did was I turned it inside out and I pinched out how much I wanted. I think it was 2.5 inches on each side. So that would be like, yeah, so I pinched it out on each side, and I had to take out a little in the armpit area because once I had pinched out so much on the side, it was like bulging out really weirdly in the armpit area because there was just, it was like this. I had pinched out all of this, but then there was a bunch of floppiness here from like not having graded the rest of the armpit. So I took out all of this, and then I kind of tapered it into the armpit, like right here is where I stopped taking out fabric, if that makes sense. So it's kind of, well, let me show you the little mutton chops I took off. It was like this. So here's the tapered armpit, or tapered into the sleeve, I should say. So this is about how much I took off of each side. And this is so beautiful. I'm gonna give this to my girls to play with. They'll use this as like a little blanket for their toys. This is the most beautiful yarn. So yeah, I clipped it first and tried it on. So then with my sewing machine, I just sewed on that line that I had pinched out, and I gave myself like a 1/2 inch seam allowance to allow for the thickness of the fabric, to allow for the turn of the fabric, so that when it, because the fabric is so thick, if I just sewed it right on the line I wanted, by the time the fabric turned right side out, it probably would be even smaller than that, if that makes sense. And then I steam blocked that seam flat, and I think the result is pretty good. You can tell in the pattern a little bit. Can you tell it's right here? Well, unless you're a knitter. A non-knitter would never know. And even if you could tell, I don't care because that type of imperfection doesn't bother me much. Well, here's the inside. So yeah, there's about a 1/2 inch or maybe a 1/4 inch seam that I've just ironed flat, and it's pretty flat, and it's such a chunky knit that it just dissolves right into the thickness of the rest of the fabric. And I'll insert a little video here of me wearing the altered piece, and I'm really happy with the results. I am so glad this worked out because everything else about this cardigan is perfect. I love how it turned out. I just should not have wet blocked the body. So lesson learned there. So that's actually it for my hand knits. So now I'm gonna get on to the machine knits, and I made these 3 things just as a little preview. If you're not interested in machine knitting, then I will see you next time, and thank you so much for watching. Now I know some of you in the comments are really interested in machine knitting, so this section is for you. So one thing that I had always wanted to try was knitting a sock on the machine. And Diane Sullivan, who must be the nicest lady in the world, has a free knitting machine sock pattern for every size from infant to very, very large. So it's a free pattern, and she has a free video tutorial here on YouTube, and I'll link both of those below in case you want to know how to do it. It comes in all sizes from infant to extra large, extra large adult. I'm not even sure how large, and I'm just so shocked this worked out. So I've never knit socks before because it seems like a lot of work, but I was very interested in trying a machine knit sock. Now this one does look a little bit sad. It's just kind of like a prototype, I think, just something for me to try to learn how to do. So for my next prototype, I'm going to try to elongate the cuff, the ribbed, what do you call this, cuff area? Because this is pretty short. And then I'm going to try to do some design like cables or something on the front, and this, what do you call this part? The ankle leg part? So try to incorporate some design into this. But for a basic sock, oh, and by the way, it fits my foot perfectly. And maybe that's one of the reasons why I never wanted to try socks, because I'm afraid they're not going to fit because I've got very large, size 12 feet. But this one fits perfectly. They have sizes even much larger than my feet. And so the secret to how you do this, oh, it comes off the machine like this. There's no seaming. First, you start at the back and you knit the entire bottom half of the sock. You knit from here at the bottom and you knit the heel, then you knit the underside of the foot, and then you decrease for the toe. Then you increase for the toe and then knit the entire top half of the sock. And as you're knitting the top half of the sock, you pick up a stitch on each side from the bottom part of the sock. So you're kind of seaming it as you go. And by the time you get to the end, you're the top of the cuff, you're done. And so I'm on the knitting machine. I can do a lot of things, but I haven't done much experimentation with putting stitches in hold and doing like short rows that way. So I was a little bit scared, and I did fail. This was my first attempt. I failed putting the stitches on hold because the yarn was getting fed into the machine in a weird way in the needle. I don't even know what went wrong. So this one kind of has two heels because I failed on one heel, and then just to practice I put in another heel. But you can see this is the whole back part of the sock, the heel, and then I was gonna start doing the bottom of the foot, but I just did a second heel. So that's a fail. I'll have to unravel that. But then my second attempt was a full sock. So yeah, I just need to knit another one. I couldn't give this to anyone. It's a little bit, I don't know, it's just a little bit sad. Maybe it's the yarn I chose, but it looks like something you would give Dobby maybe. Maybe in a happier color with some cables. Spruce it up a little bit. This could be great for gift knitting. So the yarn I have is this. It's a sock yarn by Qing Fiber Company. It's a fingering weight sock yarn, 80% lamb's wool and 20% nylon. And it's very soft, but for some reason it looks kind of cheap by the time you knit it up. But maybe it's just because it's a plain sock that looks a bit sad, and maybe it just needs some texture or something. This is in the color Koala. And I don't really like gray. Maybe that doesn't help either. So yes, that's a very exciting sock update. And it seems like the machine really likes that type of yarn. So if you're wanting to try a yarn that's 20% nylon, 80% wool or lamb's wool, I think it will be okay. And by the way, the machine I have is called the Silver Reed SK280. It's the one where you can you can make your own punch cards, and it will do 2 color-stranded color work. So my next finished object on the machine is this little raglan cropped sweater. It has a cropped body and also cropped sleeves, like 3/4 length sleeves. And this is something that I've been wanting to do on the machine for forever, like since I got my machine. And it was to recreate a sweater that I already have, but just in a different fabric. So I have this exact sweater, just like a store-bought sweater that's cropped, and it has 3/4 length sleeves, and I wanted the same thing but in wool. My store-bought one is probably like plastic or something, but I really love the shape and I just wanted like an upgraded, luxurious version. So I had some leftover yarn from when I made the Wilderness sweater by Fiber Tales. And I don't know if you saw that episode, but I also ran out of yarn for that project. And I was using a beautiful, one of my favorite yarns of all time. It was by Uist Wool, and it was their Korka base, I think it was called. Or maybe the color was Korka. But anyways, it was a fingering weight yarn by Uist Wool, and it's all out of stock. So when I ran out, it was well and truly out. I found an alternative in another dye lot, which I used. It didn't turn out great, but it's fine. I don't really mind it. But I also went on the Uist Wool website when that whole debacle was going down, and I got one of their other yarns, another fingering weight yarn, and this one is called a Stare, because I thought this colorway matched pretty well to the Korka that I originally used. And so I had a couple extra skeins of this left over from my, because it was backup for this old project that I did. So I wanted to use this that was just sitting in my stash. So again, this is Uist Wool Astaire. This is the ball band. And Uist Wool is a wool from Scotland, and this base is 75% wool and 25% alpaca, and it's all from Scottish sheep. And they come in 50-gram skeins, and each of the 50-gram skeins is 175 meters. And the color I have is called Maol, M-A-O-L. And it's a beautiful beige yarn with dark and light tweedy effects here. And I just love this. So the color of this is so cozy to me. And compared to the other yarn that I used by Uist Wool, which I think the other one was a merino. It was so soft and scrumptious, and this one is definitely itchy if you're sensitive to wool. I'm not. It feels itchy to me, but once I put it on, it feels fine. Like, it doesn't feel itchy because I don't have that sensitivity. But if you do, I don't think this will probably be too itchy for you. It's a non-superwash, 100% wool yarn, and even with the alpaca, I would not say this is particularly soft. And I did soak this with eucalyptus and let it bloom and everything, so this is as soft as it's gonna get. And it's quite rustic, but I just love that. And it's warm, but since it's fingering weight, it's pretty thin, so, and the crop design makes it perfect for spring. I'm wearing this over a white tank dress, which is how I will probably wear it. A lot of my wardrobe is white, which is perfect for knitwear, I think. You can wear any color knitwear and just pair it with white and it will look good. That's my little secret. So anyways, I took the measurements of my existing sweater, and that's how I made it on the machine. So there was probably 2 hours worth of just planning and calculations to make this sweater. I made it in 4 pieces, front, back, and 2 sleeves. So I did the front and back bottom up. I did a 2x1 mock rib. So mock rib is where you have 2 needles in work, and then instead of a purl stitch, you leave 1 needle out of work, and it kind of gives the effect of a rib. I don't know if it's picking up very well on camera. Okay, there you go. So for the 2x1 mock rib, I used a tension 7, and then for the rest of the body, I used tension 9. And I think that was, yeah, when I make my swatches, I usually try several different needle tensions just to see what I like. And here's my swatch. I actually did a generous swatch this time, because one time I made a swatch, it was probably like this big, and it's just not accurate, because by the time you have some weight on there pulling it, you really need a, oh Okay, my cat's doing something, sorry. By the time you have a bunch of width in your fabric, things can change is what I've learned, especially on the knitting machine. And since it's so quick to make a swatch on the knitting machine, you might as well make a giant one and just unravel it if you need the yarn later. And so yeah, for the ribbing 2x1, and I made the ribbing double the length I wanted, and then I picked up the bottom and put it back on the needles and like seamed that together. So it's a double thickness ribbed hem, and that just gives a really neat finished edge here. And yeah, so that's just my tension swatch. And from this, I made all my calculations and figured out how many stitches to cast on for the front and back. And I calculated how many rows to make the body before starting the raglan decreases. So for the decreases, I used a five prong needle selector tool because I wanted you to be able to see those decreases, and hopefully you can. This is where I did the same 5-prong decrease on the body and the sleeve and then seam them together. So that's what you're seeing here. And I think I did a decrease on every 1.5 rows, which is really annoying to do. So I would do every row, every other row, every row, every other row, like that. So rows like 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, 9, 10, like that. And that was really hard to keep track of, so I actually just wrote it all out because I can't keep track of stuff like that in my head. And then the latest thing I tried, which I've been so nervous to try, but I finally bit the bullet and tried it, was to do this type of neckline where you have to bind off these stitches right in the center. You have to put, okay, so you bind off the center, and then let's say you want to work on this side. So you put all these needles on this side on hold so that you're only working this side. And while you're working this side, you have to do the raglan decreases on this side. And then on this side, I had a very specific bind off decrease rate to make this U-scoop neckline. I hope that all makes sense. It was really complicated in my brain. I think I just have to do it a few times and then it will become more intuitive. But I just can't believe it worked out. Like, none of the stitches dropped, and the 5-prong selector tool I used gives a really cool detail to the neckline here. You can really see where I did those decreases, which is a teeny detail only a knitter would notice. And I did basically the same thing for the back, except I didn't do any holding of stitches or rounding of the neckline. I just knit this raglan a little higher, and the final amount of stitches here is less than on the front. And then I just bound off straight all of these stitches, however many there were, 50 or 40 or something. And then I knit both the sleeves. Did I knit them bottom up? Yeah, I knit the sleeves bottom up, and I did a really long ribbed cuff, which I think looks really nice. And then I did increases up to the armpit area, and then did the raglan decreases at the same exact rate as I did on the body, like a diamond trapezoid type of shape for the sleeves, and I did 2 exactly the same. And then it was time to seam up. So I knew I wanted to do a neckline on the machine, and I didn't want to knit the neckline separately and then sew it on. So what I did was I seamed all the pieces together. So the front, the front, the sleeve, the back, and the other sleeve, and I sewed all the seams together except on one raglan I did not seam up. So the whole thing was just one giant flat sheet. And since it was a flat sheet, I was able to put it on the machine and then knit the neckband. Oh, don't mind me, I just love this sweater so much I didn't want to take it off. And I did a double, like a folded over neckband For this, not too thick. I just did exactly what my original sweater was, which was just like an inch or so. And I folded it back on itself, knit one more row to knit them all together, and then I bound off, and it was all done. Now when I seamed it all up, I found that I did not choose the correct seam for the armpit. So the armpit was like way up here in an uncomfortable way, which was like this. I made the armpit a little too high on the body. So what I did was I unpicked the arm and the body seam. See here, I didn't sew it back up yet so I could show you. So here I've undid this. So here is where the original armpit was, right here. And now that these things are open, I'm going to connect them down here. So this is going to be the new armpit, much lower. So original armpit, new armpit way down here. And when I tried that on, it was perfect, perfect fit. So yeah, I'm so happy I finally succeeded in making a perfectly fitted sweater. I've done one or two other sweaters on the machine. I did one sweater from start to finish on the machine and it doesn't fit well. And then there's a couple other sweaters I made where I did partially hand knitted, partially machine knit, and those worked out pretty well. But this is my first full machine knit sweater that was actually a success, and so I feel like I've reached a new stage in my machine knitting where I'm in control of the machine. It's not in control of me anymore. We're like working together now and I'm in charge. So I do feel very powerful in my machine knitting now. And I can do the stitches on hold thing and color work, and so the possibilities are endless. Okay, and the very last thing I'm going to talk about today is this. Oh, it's so cute. This is a little jacket cardigan thing that I made for my daughters. So I think I told you already, but my older daughter doesn't like any type of wool or anything, but I have all of this alpaca yarn still left over from when I was supposed to make her another Wiola kofta. So this is the Wiola kofta for kids. It's available in Norwegian, which is fine for me because I just took the charts, which are language independent, and made punch cards for my knitting machine with those charts. But I've had a lot of luck with Google Translate in case you want to get the pattern in Norwegian and use Google Translate to help you. I've had a lot of success doing that with both Norwegian patterns and Swedish patterns, especially if you're not a very beginner knitter. I think you could easily translate those patterns. But anyways, I've already made a Wiola kofta for kids several months ago in a smaller size for my youngest girl, and I had a lot of leftover alpaca yarn. So I decided to try to make my older girl one anyways, even though I was pretty sure it was going to be too itchy, but I thought if it's oversized and she tries again, maybe it'll be okay. And worst case scenario, I'll save it for my younger daughter when she outgrows the first one I made, which is smaller. Well, it was too itchy for my older girl, so it went to my youngest. And I knit the sleeves so long, like even too long for my older daughter. She's 6. And so what I did was I had to chop off a bunch of the sleeve, but then I kept in 2 extra inches or so to put in like a growth section. So you can kind of see here. So I took 2 inches and folded it back on itself like a little sandwich, and then sewed it down so that when she gets larger, when her arms grow, I can undo this. See how bulky it is? There's like 3 layers of knit here, and she doesn't notice, so it's okay. So I can just undo that, and the sleeve will magically be 2 inches longer. So that is super cool. Great for kids knits. You could do that on the pants, the body, the sleeves, anything you want. And this is so wide. This actually looks ridiculous on her. She's about to turn 5 next week, but she's like kind of small. But this is a drop shoulder design, and her shoulders end like right here. So it really looks ridiculous on her, but she loves it actually. I'll put in a picture. It looks very ill-fitting, but if she's wearing it, then I guess who cares? And for kids knits, I love pink, blue, and white color combo. When they were babies, I bought all their clothes in pink, white, and blue, and you can mix and match all those three colors and it always looks good in my opinion. And so yes, I made punch cards for this pattern and this pattern. And then for the little, since there's three colors, the machine can only do two colors. So for this blue stuff here, I did a duplicate stitch. And that didn't take too long. I actually found it really fun, so I'll probably do duplicate stitch again in the future. So for the leftover yarn, for the background color, I had like a dirty white beige color and white, but I didn't have enough white to do the whole cardigan. So for the back panel, I had to use that dirty beige, white, and pink. And so the pattern doesn't show up very well at all back here, but it's okay. Here, there you can see. But the front, I did the white and pink, and that looks a lot better. So it's kind of just a scrappy project. Nobody really cares. I'm not selling this, so the fact that it's got different colors in the front and back is totally fine in my opinion. And I made this very similarly to how I made the sweater, where I had this whole thing flat on the machine at the neckline so that I could do the neckline flat, directly knitted onto the body and sleeve pieces. And on the fronts, and did the ribbing. That was very easy. And I did a double folded one so that was nice and thick and wouldn't buckle under the weight of the buttons or anything like that. And she wanted, for spring, she picked these cute little bunny rabbit buttons. How cute are these? I think I just got these buttons thrifted from somewhere. I don't even remember. But those are so adorable. And then, so I didn't have to worry about buttonholes. I just made a little, a loop, button loop thingy. I learned that from the Beatrix cardigan. You just take a teeny loop of thread and make buttonhole stitches, like with a needle and thread, make buttonhole stitches along the loop. So it's like a nice thick loop. And then just sew that wherever you think is good. And I really like that. That way you don't have to plan out your buttonholes. So yeah, overall this one went really well. I don't think I had problems. Oh, I'll also mention when I sewed the front and back together at the shoulder seam here. And once that was done, I picked up stitches for the sleeve and then knitted the sleeve flat and then seamed the sleeve together at the underarm here. So yeah, simple 5 rectangle piece. I didn't do any shaping in the sleeves. I probably should have. Now I feel like I know better now. Like I shouldn't take the easy way out anymore. I can easily add some shaping to the sleeves. I probably don't need to do a drop shoulder again, especially for my youngest. Her shoulders are so narrow, like it doesn't fit very well. I'll probably do set-in sleeve or raglan sleeve next time I make a child's sweater, because that's actually very easy to do and I'm not scared to do it anymore. And yeah, it's super soft. Oh, one thing, I have Drops alpaca and Hobby alpaca. Both are in this, and I would say Hobby alpaca, H-O-B-I-I. That alpaca is softer to me than the one by Drops, just in case you wanted to know that. Phew, I feel like that was a lot of knitting. It was, yeah, I've definitely been doing a lot of knitting, and I was sick last week, so all I did was knit, which is great for this video. If you liked what you saw, I would love if you would support my channel by subscribing and hitting the thumbs up button, and also leaving a comment about what you're working on and where in the world you are from. Thank you again so much for watching, and I hope you have a great weekend. Bye!